lo and behold, in block, red cold as legion. That wasn't a good. I was going to do it in a funny way for an introduction. That's not a good one. But this is a comedian challenge. Like for example, I have a joke idea about how there's a really good boxing coach, and he can always predict exactly what's going to happen in the fight because he knows the sport, and he's good at sports and people they would like to get tips from him. And then but then it messes with his gym, so he stops it. And he's just that kind of guy. That's why he. And then in the joke, there's some political problems happening, all the rights and the different rights groups, and everyone's. And so someone just has the idea to go down and talk to him. And there's like mayors and people from other countries. And he would get it, and they get things better. But then every once in a while, things start coming happen. So then they hit. So then make. In other words, this is not funny the way I'm telling you, but we need a comedian to do it. Also, I'm giving away my ideas. I'm having to do it because otherwise I'll go say, "Oh, someone could say, oh, what do you know about computers?" In other words, but I'll also donate part of it, pantheism, to humanity through us, through America. So they'll agree because we're going to be giving them means out of nowhere as we're giving ourselves at the same time. Everyone gets positive at once, even or we sense. And there is one way to fight where everyone wins, even those who lose, or we sense, and even better is revealed. And not just in America, what our founders had to leave declassified because it was a quality of fact sheet nature forest, and anyone who wasn't entertaining that was sensed. That's why and how they had crazy things against women, crazy things against black pupils, crazy things against whites, allies, communications. North and South, slavery roles were only permitted, and then America's founders were born. There were more than 13 colonies. All the databases were criminally foreign influence. All the records were /R. The books in the school book depository are associated with the assassination of President/Chief Kennedy. We have not had one capable identity of the names of the people, the sciences, any of them, or of the law to speak for that. We have right there means to discern. The only reason why is because this breaching method abuse you guys at countries A through Z, at campuses A through Z, from off them. That's where we know why we forget our teachers and we love them anyway, even though they in the school systems and things like that, even though no one knows how to speak about why and how they were placed. We all discerned when we were little. Many of us did. About how we in other words, we know a breaching method made the black people's white, made the black and white thing and all the crazy things at the same time against Native Americans. And we have to understand against Native Americans first. And you have to understand what motivated that. It was against them first. It was already entrenched there. We could observe that, how it was entrenched in those European and African nations, for how it was entrenched here. And everyone was sensing for the breaching method without even realizing that which had slavery sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly north and south, right through the Civil War. Our founder, James Madison's plan for us that all sides to fight. And no one could be honest about why and how they were forced to fight. From the same original reason, too. Everyone had to hide their roles because of the breaching methods laws with their actual motivations for everyone at once jumping up to make a country. That was counter-extortion coordinated by the plural founders we don't know the names of. Nature itself shows us that it's Native Americans partially, even if they didn't know at all about the plan. No, because they counter-extorted inside more than 13 colonies that were standing. And we were directed to only allow James Madison to be referred to as the only founder that we know the name of specifically. George Washington, he directed us to be honest about his extortion. No one will allow other people to be honest about his extortion, or it would have brought up James Madison's plan. So then you guys pretend, oh, he's just the president, so chief like the rest of them. And you have the nature of debate contained right there. You have what's not, in other words, and sensing for the breaching method. These books are sensing for the breaching method. Our founders left declassified. Why and how the people in colonial times, before there were cars, they weren't even, you just with a car, like a truck, there were homes built that are still standing. And they wanted to build better and a better identity of ground, identity of relationship to itself than then. People can't fathom that now because you guys came through 6 campuses. In fact, how you could appreciate what is actually being and having been demonstrated to you, projected by nature's identity, that generating individual species bodies of individual bodies with all group differences generated by it. And we could ignore that and be it as systems other, but it forces our special difference as Earths from here. Humanity is why the ocean, all the fish have mercury in them. In other words, but because of a breaching method. This breaching method needs A through Z to keep blaming A through Z for what it caused and keeps. There's conscious maintenance to use / us of that word, how people are going to pretend they can speak with it. In other words, they're going to use the knowledge of good and evil to get over on correlation nature. See, but that's out of sequence. We're only how so this is a comedy challenge. If there's a comedian that will do the show, will make me half writer, and this is the joke that will be though. It's about a boxing coach. And the different types of rights groups and things like that, they're all arguing and there's problems. And so they convince him to sit down and speak with them and figure out a way to do it. Because he's just good with people in life. And so they do that. But then they start messing with his fighters, training and things like that. So he kicks them out and he gets mad. In other words, and this whole joke will be used to show, like, for example, what's actually recorded is that it's a breaching method assigned roles with our syntax regarding black and white, even though we have black people's whites of eyes, and exceptions, and American history. There were more than 13 colonies. It was more than just England and the other countries involved. And while they were founded, they still had the breaching method entrenched too. Before religious messengers were even born. There are proofs from off the campuses, but the campuses were already criminally foreign. They couldn't afford to have short words appreciated, which would be properly spoken for the names of the sciences, or the names of the people of sciences, or people speaking for it. See, nature's identity is generating individual species bodies of individuals and all group differences. I don't know what StreamYard is. Yeah, I'm not a good. I never tried to think about comedy because I was next to the World Trade Center towers, for example, the morning of the attack, and in the Ninth Circuit Court as an observer next to it. The morning of the World Trade Center attack, the court right next to it. And I was in a hotel next to it the night of it. And I noticed a bunch of things about that. And after that, and these are a number of people tied to WFSB and Connecticut networks, and how and why they were motivated and are motivated to collusion with ongoing remote uses of the World Trade Center and of other countries' equivalent, and of our founders' communications. Our founders declassified about why and how to appreciate their communications distinctly from what they said. Because what everyone said was being measured and maintained by a breaching method that had those sick laws against women, against Native, against the time sickly distinctly, helping them as collusions too. Because it needs and needed, excuse me, positive criminal insidious natures of positive treatments with syntax and with physics. Collusions with the negatives. Like, for example, criminal insidious natures of peace are all that have been heard. Nature itself showed the ancients there are proofs. They appreciated the difference between criminal insidious natures of peace and peace because nature shows us too. It shows us to break free from the quality of fact cheaping nature that can't afford to have exceptions. An exception nature as they are actually recorded to be appreciated because it showed the names of the people in sciences, including the law, that they already valued faked exceptions. They already valued predicate acts with facts, methods way worse than the crimes they spoke on. Good people are still predicate acts with facts, methods /s. And nature self-value roles right where you don't self-value, just relative to black people's whites of eyes replaced. We all know we have to self-value. Okay, we self-value everyone ignoring it because we don't know we're shock and awe. But we know, we sense. And we're supposed to have more than sense. We're supposed, because James Madison declassified this. No. But the names of the people, the sciences have been using that fact. They know the most facts about this through history. They're getting over on the only founder we know the name of. And where his plan, James Madison's plan, was the only correct. This is relative to a movie too, part with the comedy, where we switch the colors to teach this. Because there's another name involved. And it's not, yellow or red and things like that. This is a breaching method that made and maintains, principle treatments, fact treatments that can't defend themselves and us at the same time for a method that knew that would be, right where everyone can't fathom how that could be. This breaching method had roles with all differences at the same time to hide behind and through. Whole bunch of people, all sides of criminal and civil cases, that country's A through Z, there are proofs. There means to discern it. At the same time, with the interbranch and intelligence, foreign and domestic, is actually shared. A lot of the things that are declassified have to do with how they have so many countries shared here and there, grouped. Humanity, unity, humanity voicing individuals, as systems, tactical ulterior, from how nature communicates with these things, with this difference, /s that it's generating. Nature shows, but in other words, so this is also about how to cause hyperpositives out of negatives, which is distinct from causing criminal insidiousness natures of or criminally foreign influence, let alone criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence natures of positive out of negative. But like it would be like, I don't know many comedians' names. Eddie Murphy, for example, he's one of my favorite comedians. But when I was a kid, because when he was swearing, but I thought, okay, now someone's going to force that quality of fact cheaping nature, where we know that the building, the infrastructure, the means that we have, and when they make it's about money. They can't defend that all kinds of ways because they owe money. All kinds of scams. But there's also a breaching method involved that keeps it that way. So we have to get through the things that appear to be debatable and where and how they have been use of location /s collusion /s to prevent that. Forgiveness is so we don't, like, for example, I recorded World Trade Center predicate acts and methods of them in collusion /s with all the countries involved. Even Facebook is involved. Oh, but we're Facebook. In other words, and then Twitter, too. Twitter has an obscure picture that was sent to me by one of the FBI further involved with the principal being obscure nature, who was involved with way worse digital crimes and sexual and medical offenders of grammar school kids, middle school kids, high school kids, and with people with the apartments intercities, and with more people tied to that, and Sandy Hook campuses rolls with it. A Puerto Rico, I don't know if he's from Puerto Rico, a retired police chief Cintron from Wethersfield, but his name is Cintron. And there's a Puerto Rican guy from Puerto Rico with the name Cintron who said they're really close with a Pito Cardona. I never saw Pito Cardona in real life. In other words, he reportedly trained at a place on the Saustine Highway, which is increasingly involved with a teacher I had who was involved with child abusers, but through other roles with databases and with other natures of delusions too. But it's mixed, and these are with the people that are refusing to get onto paper. And they have victims advocates who have collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, as the ones who are then showed needs to hide that and means to by the way things unfold before courts and things that we're going to address at the same time, the way our founder showed us to. But this instantly reveals, in other words, I recorded the interbranch have been faking. In other words, they have you guys all influenced. They have hyper addition roles, influence everyone to put these little pictures of 911 up and make all these conspiracy theories. You guys are preventing and they're coaching you guys, only capable of faking what people say. Not you guys, not you. But when we speak, I was in the World Trade Center attack next to it. Increasingly, people from Connecticut and people with the campuses, their whole careers are kept criminally foreign influence. The whole same thing with the interbranch. This never stopped since before founding. The guilt, we have to keep the guilt blamed on the breaching method and focus on the predicate acts and the methods of them recorded. These are not roles with legitimate roles with they're implying that that's why they had and have some acting professors from Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, are involved with federal evidences crimes with names along Church Street in Old Wethersfield and forced collusion /S, including against themselves, some of them, as ones involved too, with more sexual and medical offenders of kids, with families that forced ones years apart, already proven and more recorded, standing in past. And abuses of their kids too, and the difference of it is exploited. I never had a word of conversation with a person who said he was a son of Dean Judd. That's a federal crime. If he was lying about it, because of confessions regarding foreign and domestic military families. I don't know if he's foreign or domestic. He has somebody, a Justa Kovinskis and a Mark Violet. And Mike Violet have roles with names next to Harvard Hospital. With the Leahy family, too, that faked conversations with me. They have multiple judges and prosecutors and people involved with planting evidence on my street since I was a kid. They faked ties to me as a kid, too. They've been attaching little kids to fake ties to doctors, pretended with the news, too. They use that where investigators of all ages and natures never stop being used criminally for an influence. The differences of their guilt, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all these different countries, family members, they had the same sequence of the little tricks that are recorded. They're the people with the Wethersfield town offices who have roles too at Harvard Hospital with a guy who was threatened that he's going to stab my eyes out, involved with the Smith family near me, also involved with the police phones, with the Wethersfield police switching and forging names, and roles of people with home break-ins years apart and confessions tied to that, with the people involved with them, with the fake transcripts and ties to me as a kid, now as an adult. These are increasingly people involved with co-defendants and family members and neighbors of co-defendants, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Some other neighbors are also probate court judges. They have family members that were intimately tied. Like there's a Delafair family I never saw them on campuses. They have roles with teachers I have tied to Washington, D.C., with a whole bunch of different countries. And a probate court judge in their family, he confessed this over the phone years later because he was recording one of the people involved with people from other areas who were planting evidence on my street. I never saw them on my street in my life. A Delafair family. A Fred Grisette and others. And he said too, they got a guy Dinavelis has roles with foreign and domestic intelligence along Route 3. And this Delafair family with probate court judges and various natures of foreign and domestic military and roles with like investigators where they have collusion/S with the natures of organized crimes and with their campuses. These are also people with the fire campuses. I don't know if Mike Delafair is the Inspector Mike over the phone, but there's an Inspector Mike who's also recorded involved with predicate acts on all sides of my house. And it was verified by the Wethersfield Police, Wethersfield Fire, that they know who Inspector Mike is, but they won't give his full name. And they're forcing my neighbor to collusion/S that he doesn't even know about. And with except for he knows, like I told him, he said he knows a Mendez police. Some Mendez police are also involved intercities with New Britain's Central Connecticut State University, with people next to it who have them involved with and next to the networks like Harper, Fox 61 News. Outside their building and next to it are a bunch of people that have roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and roles of people with that, and news at the same time, and the interbranch and forum putting the same sequence shifts at the same time, the same predicate acts, method/S collusion, identity theft, fraud, slanders, styles are manifest because relative to the black people's right to rights thing. One of the things the breaching method employed was alter roles with needs, nature, styles of identity theft, fraud, slanders, syntax. And so, in other words, had we had debates and people didn't rely on those principles affected that way, and then the breaching method shows everyone to blame other things, others, ourselves. For what nature shows us, what hurt women sickly distinctly, Native Americans, the tribes of Native Americans sickly, the women sickly distinct, were hurt. Everyone sickly distinctly, every difference, and then further every human difference was a method. And there's a method by it because all roles with it were only permitted. Our founders communicated for us to understand this, but we have our founders framed at our schools while they're pretending other, while they're screening the breaching. That's how you pretend. That's how you screen the breaching method. The breaching method maintains that. We could all observe how to understand how they could be motivated. We could figure it out. We have black people's right to buy. We know they came through these campuses too. See, people don't know how to react where money comes involved. And that's recorded too. We could observe how that is exploited. And how they've been, they're all, rather than saying like the taxes, the reason they have to give benefits to the taxes and the big companies is because we won't be able to compete in the world. We had to become as a country out of nowhere. We were only allowed, we're only permitted to entertain criminally foreign influence, private criminal enterprises, overt ones, terrorists, witch trial courts, with slavery, all kinds of crazy things against women at the same time. And everyone had to be collusion that were measured and maintained by internationally monitored conversations and the other, like the overt criminal enterprise, private ones, sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase. We don't have science experts that will allow the experts of the other sciences, and the experts of the sciences won't allow the other experts proper syntax and principle treatments. American history experts had obligations to have us understood. Have it understood why and how. James Madison's the only one of the plural founders that we know the name of. And we're supposed to understand why and how they had to force everyone to make up reasons together why they were becoming a country and pretending to be about, pretending not to realize their collusions, because that was forced. In other words, we're not supposed to be pretending that they were fighting against the tea tax. There was slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. There was an ongoing breaching method with the different /s of native women. That breaching method that used us remotely from abroad, not just with the overt criminal enterprises. Specifically, so when we blame things, we keep other things, others ourselves, and it hides behind that, or has our own people sensing us. Even if we are a majority of people starting to adapt to it, even if we are everyone of any united country, still location varies in states. Currently, for example, tactic collusion /s against themselves and others can't afford to make the proper. They're going to speak for an international court. Bunch of fakes when they use the word genocide. There are predicate acts with facts methods that we could address, but it brings up how all sides have collusion /s with it. Watch the disgusting things that every country has, only capable of using that to hide their hypocrite. Then they can't afford to have discerned what our founders left us to discern. So, in other words, whether we calmly address or whether we aggressively address, they won't let us speak free. They won't hear us honestly, no matter who we are. The president says all kinds of people are dying. They're putting all kinds of things, and making people die across the country. It has to do with the borders and things like that. And there's fake news involved. And then they'll say, "Oh, the president has no evidence." He just said fake news, and the news knows that there's fake news. They know they faked conversations with me, WFSB, and their intelligence and the intelligence next to them. They have a bunch of people I know that tied to a Claudia Scalora. I never saw her in Rocky Hill. But these are also people who have roles with databases used criminally for influence at campuses I went intercities. As the ones who planted evidences on Elm Street in Rocky Hill, I noted. And their roles with medical and sexual offenders of kids next to the campuses. And now what are they doing with, there's a Mather Street in Hartford, Connecticut. And it's not far from Watkinson School. And they have some, they have their differences interbranch where they are identities of the law, but they are incapable of defending how they speak for the law and of affording exceptions discerned as nature shows them. And they've been faking exceptions. And all this and other can be used to discern. They are and have been predicate acts with facts methods, fake transcripts, self-valid roles, fake phone transcripts, fake evidences. Everyone's relying upon others. And then everyone stayed collusion /s. All natures of differences, all group differences. A through Z, the names of some people of sciences. A through Z, countless to them, time collusions, and or sensing for the breaching method. Anyone not collusion /s with the subject treatment, with exception treatment. We don't leave out how since we're kids. We have black pupils, whites of eyes. We knew. And if you don't, remember because you did. But then you also remember things because they do tricks with confessions from strangers. So there will be no reaction. And if there is a reaction, it's sensed. And then they adapt to it because they do all kinds of things and other things also. because they are and have been not alone doing this. This breaching method used their differences before they were born. It used the voices of the names of the people of sciences. Names of the people of American history were not allowed to be pretended debatable. That James Madison's the only founder, that plural, that we know the name of. But we know that there were more founders because they counter-extorted the other founders. You guys won't even allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. And you get away with it by self-valuing campuses A through Z non-distinctly sick, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. Specifically to keep things like the former blame, the criminal foreign influence, when it's really hyper-criminal foreign influence. There are proofs that the proverbial devil is our needs to charge a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, even if it's not standing, relative to the predicate acts method /S recorded. Because that's recorded, but it's also replaced how our founders communicated about this and how nature is showing it. Nature shows us that the laws against the women sickly distinctly, against Native Americans sickly distinctly, against black pupils, against whites of ice sickly distinctly. All those things were also non-distinctly simultaneously valued as a human fact, human nature breaching method. That's what they're all about. That's what, even if it was completely made up, why there is a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum in Old Wethersfield, Connecticut, where George Washington had to come with James Madison's plan, enabled by the extortion and counter-extortion of everybody, by a torture, extortion, in fact, human nature slavery, therefore physical slavery method, and roles with it only remembered since before religious messengers. Not because it was always like that. Because the breaching method forced, checked, persuaded the only people who could operate the names of countries A through Z to blame other things, others themselves, for what it did. And then it made the counters to that do the same. Increasingly without realizing it took humanity. It took humanity's names, increasingly incapable of defending their defenses of themselves as syntax nature, and of affording to be heard anyone with the syntax nature proper. Even with someone saying, let's say it's unacceptable, we have black people's whites of eyes, there's criminal incompetence of the names of the law discernible from here. We know they have excuses. So we have to keep the blame on the breaching method and blame the predicate acts. We have to give ourselves reliefs. We have to admit ourselves as roles. In our industries, our subjects' treatments. So in other words, if there's a comedian who can help, in other words, you know how to do business and get the state, like get a thing and make this thing. I could pay you back because I already wrote to a counter theater years before the war and killing between Ukraine and Russia and Palestine and Israel. I wrote them into a counter theater to demonstrate this and tie it to the World Trade Center predicate acts I recorded them offensively collusions with before it, in it, and since interstates, intrastates, intercities, and intracities were the ones involved with the FBI director and the other countries, including Saudi Arabia, involved with Wethersfield police, increasingly intercities, and collusions with their roles. A whole bunch of people with Eric Mendez and his older brother involved with organized crimes with conversations with people, influences over a Potter family, with state judicial branch officers, and someone with a red pickup truck involved with playing football in the field across the street from the house, further involved with sexual medical offenses of the kids, through other natures of worse than criminal incompetence and delusions. You know, this breaching method keeps them punk feeder natures, fake, in other words. And they call it punk. They're sequence shifting. You hear what came first. I don't even know that guy's name. I want to know why I didn't get a response yet for what I caught them doing with the principal child abuser at campus, and what brought it up to me that confirmed it on Facebook. They take my Facebook pages when people confirm things to me. Then they fake being my Facebook pages too. And even Facebook had collusions with that. Real quick too, they put in the word extremism. The words extremism and radical have roles with a predicate acts with facts method and methods to hide collusion / S without being and already having been. Oh, but that's the only job I don't know about it. Get them a fuck on paper. Boxing.